Oh, wow. Pura vida, mi gente. Hey, what's up, Pure Life? Much love, much respect. Shalom, blessings. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys making the time to be here. Shout out to the live chat. We are live, so shout out to the live chat. All right. Make sure to like and share the video. Make sure to subscribe. Thanks for again tuning in. So today I just wanted to go ahead and read a book I've had for all these years. I got so many books, guys. I'm gonna show you. I have so many. I got thousands of books, I think now, and so many to still go through, and they're getting dust on them and cobwebs, digital cobwebs and digital dust. So again, gonna go ahead and read this new book together with you guys. It has some pretty interesting info. I think we do have to dodge the hijack a little bit, but I think in general has some pretty interesting stuff. So I don't know if you guys mind if we read it together. We only got 33 people right here. I don't know, people don't get notifications. People interested in other things. But that's just how it goes for me. You guys saw the AI yesterday, how it described me, and you saw the website it pulled up and what it's informing, telling people I am, and talking about pseudo history and all that. But it's all good. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Shout out to Olmec12. He's in the live chat right now. Shout out to Olmec12 for the intro beat, for the introduction beat. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you for that. Much love and respect. All right. So like as I was saying, guys, I got like thousands of books. This is my Google Drive, plus I have more on my computer. I just want to show you guys, like, I have so many books. Okay. This is in alphabetical order. As you guys can see, we got so many books still to go through. I mean, I've read a lot of them already. I've read from a lot of them already. Look at that, a World's Fair. I know you guys want me to do that. Abdul Suleiman, The Origins of the Canaanite Temple. Remember that? Look at that, Adolf Hitler, the Mein Kampf English translation. Yeah. A lot of people misinforming people what he really said, and they never show you a source. Oh yeah, it says it on this book, but when you go click on the links, they go to random websites that don't even work anymore. So we're gonna do a little video on Hitler soon. You guys are gonna see something very revealing about him. Okay, but I like to have the sources. I don't like just saying or talking or making claims. Okay. And we keep going. Encyclopedia of Freemasonry. Look at that. Authentic Narrative of the Seminole War. Archaic Dictionary. Man, I got so many books. We're still in the A's. We're still in the A's. You guys see this? Believe it or not, I used to give everybody access to this, right? And what this is, I'm talking about 7 years ago, right? That well, people started doing their own channels, right? And using my books, and then putting their own spin on it and being very hateful, biased, still judging people, calling them names, calling me a Mongol. Same people I'm sharing the stuff, right? So I just took access away. I was trying to be a good person, but I realized there ain't good people out there, really. A lot of people take advantage and don't even say thank you, and then they use it against you in a hateful way. So, I really don't got time for that. I learned my lesson, I hate learning things the hard way. I always give people the benefit of the doubt. I always, I believe there's actually more good people than bad people, but it seems the bad people are the ones who make the most noise and look for the most clout and, kind of over there clickbaiting and all that, and just judging others and spreading their bias, hate, so whatever. Look at that, Forgotten Patriots, African Americans and American Indian patriots in the Revolutionary War, which we already know. We've shown a lot, but that's a whole book specified on that. We're gonna get to all these things. We got a lot of info to go through, guys. I've been still wanting to do my gold video. That's gonna be a really good one. I got a lot on gold in the Americas. That's gonna be a good one. I just got a lot of these videos I want to take my time with, and so it's hard now that, as you guys see, we only got 55 people here. It's really hard because before I would drop a video, one or two or three a month, and I'll get a lot of views. And back then I wasn't like full-time YouTube. I still had day jobs, so I wasn't really worried about if anybody viewed them or got any views or made any money out of them. But unfortunately, I have made this literally my job, and YouTube just hates. And as you can see, people don't care. People don't care. But look at all the books that we're still gonna go through. We still got a lot to go through, guys. A lot to go through. All right. Don't worry, we just began. If you just got here, we just begun. Don't worry. You don't have to go to the beginning. We just got here. You guys got to look at when it started. It tells you 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago. Now, if you're an hour or two late, then yeah, I recommend you start all over. But you don't have to go to the beginning. We just started. All right. Like you guys see, we're in the H's still. I just want to see. I'm not kidding when I say I got thousands of books. And again, I got way more on my computer too stored. Got thousands of books. Thousands of books, man. Okay, just wanted to show that. I'm gonna go ahead and open the book that we're gonna be reading today. Let's go through it right now. Again, thanks for tuning in and being here. Appreciate you guys for making the time to do that and supporting and always being here. So go ahead and get started right here real quick. You guys are not late. You're just getting started. Don't worry. You got to look at the minutes when it says it started. You see you're not very late. You got here on time. The ones who are here right now, you guys here on time. Please help me get more traffic though. Like and share the video, subscribe. She's gonna one day understand he's not for everyone. I kind of get it, but I'm still humane. I still wanna, it's like evangelist. You try to convert people. You try to like bring them over to the right side. I still have hope for people that are haters and stuff. But I get you. What are we looking at right here? Did anybody know what this is or where it is? Before I even saw this image, I knew exactly where it was because I grew up in New England. So I knew exactly what that was. I used to drive by it when I used to, coming from Boston, I used to go visit New Hampshire. The old man or the watcher. This is actually not there anymore. I think something happened. I think it fell. Parts of it fell or got destroyed. But this book was written in 1945, so it was still there. It says situated 44 degrees 10 north, 71, 75 west in Franconia Notch, New Hampshire, near Mount Washington. So when I used to go to Mount Washington, which was a beautiful place in New Hampshire, the White Mountains and all that. Beautiful place, actually, guys. Summer and winter. Winter, you go skiing and stuff. Summer, it's like a lot of lakes and a lot of cool things. You can go camp, and it's just a beautiful place. Forest, So you would see this off the highway. You can kind of see this off the highway. It literally was like a face looking down. It looked like it was man-made, What is that noise? Hold on, guys. What is that noise? I got like some music playing in the background. I don't know why. Hold on. Let me make sure nine's open. All right, I got it. I found the source. It was actually somebody was on my our house phone and somebody was on hold with elevator music on. I thought it was coming from my computer. No worries. Sorry about that. So Says here that this profile stands as the latitude of the Indian Head Rock and the Oracle of Winnewaza in Minnesota, and on the polar circle with the area of Cusco, the Inca capital of Peru, and the Great Raja in Borneo. If reversed, this picture discloses the ghost or spirit man, as above, so below. Babe, are you sure is that? Sorry, guys. I just want to make sure. Okay. Okay, so because Maria says she hears it, so I'm a little confused. Shouldn't hear it because it's not coming from my computer. Anyways, this is the book we're gonna read, or start reading, a whole other book, right? Again, I've had this book for years. I was going through my drive yesterday and I was like, yeah, let me read this book. So it says America, the background of Columbus, being a survey of the revelations of science with respect to the Western Hemisphere and its peoples before its unveiling by Columbus, by Jennings C. Weiss, Virginia Academy of Science, American Association for the Advancement of Science, all right? And it says, only eternity and history have triumphed over time. With faith in the fathers, let us abjure the degrading materialism that denies them. Interesting, huh? So again, 1945, and some of the other books she wrote. Let me just we're gonna read a little bit, we're gonna get a little bit of the introduction, not all of it. I just want you guys to see. It starts talking about in general stuff, okay, warming up to what it's about to get to. But I saw something here I wanted to start on. Old World Monkeys, Lemuria. So you guys can pause it. That's why I'm doing this, so you guys can like read it if you ever want. Pause it. Man, ancestor of the human race has appeared in one place. Dodge the hijack. All right. Let me see where we are. Darwinism. See, it's talking about general stuff. Again, this is written 1945. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Keep going. We keep going. I know it's side somewhere. Welcome, welcome. This does give time to people to join as well. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Peace, peace, pura vida. Pura vida, mi gente. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's actually a pretty long introduction. So she's kind of setting the tone, setting the tone for what she's about to read. We're gonna go right into we're gonna go to a specific part introduction, then we're gonna read chapter 1. Okay? Then it starts talking about Genesis and the Bible. Okay. I think we're close. I know I read it. I had to read all this, guys. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna read all this. James South showed there were two religions in Israel. Okay, we're close. I know we're close. Here we go. Oh, hold on. Moses, theism, account of Says here, when therefore Genesis is analyzed in the light of modern science, the historical mysteries embodied therein collapse like structural arches from which the keystones have been drawn, leaving this grand scripture intact despite its hostile critics, yielding an immense amount of American history. Also, it disposes of the misconception that man was born in the Garden of Eden, ever incorrectly so believed to have been located in Mesopotamia. Believed. We have our own Mesopotamia, if you guys don't know, in Argentina. Very lush place, a very ancient place. So what Mesopotamia are they talking about? So too it renders utterly unattainable other theories that man was born in Central Asia and Africa and in vanished realms of the South Pacific. All right, they're saying it debunks all that. Theories, theories out of Africa, theories. The time when the ancient myths were deemed mere fairy stories invented to amuse children is, of course, no more. Today, science harkens back to the truths uttered not only by Plato and Epimetheus, but by the Christian fathers, right? So, what truth did Plato talk about, right? We're talking about Atlantis, right? So-called ancient Americans. The myths were the medium through which history was handed down to the initiates of the ancient mysteries, to whom alone, after long and careful preparation, the truth was disclosed, lest it be abused by the vulgar. Looking at the egg in the mouth of the Greco-Egyptian god Nophis or Senubis, Anubis, also called Nu, Nut, Num, Nu, Nef, Keth, etc. And we've gone over these deities and what they really represent and how they relate to ancient America. The modern scientist recalls the Japanese and Polynesian myths that human life began with the egg laid by a great bird. Now, remember, guys, we read a book, Researches into the Lost History of America. One of the chapters is that America is the egg of the world. The egg of the world. And remember what Cusco means. Cusco means the belly or the navel of the world. Literally. Equally significant is the myth of the phoenix common to the Egyptians, Arabians, Syrians, Ionians, and Greeks, of whom the symbol was the red bird shown arising out of the ashes, known to the pre-Celtic Greeks and Egyptians as Pyros, and to their successor as Phoenix. Through it was expressed the conception of the immortal soul surviving the physical ordeal constituting the so-called martyrdom of man upon the terrestrial domus. The most profound allegory known to the science of mythology, however, is that of the sacred lotus, of which the symbol is found in the architecture of every clime. With our advance of knowledge, no longer is Herodotus deemed the direct ancestor of Munchausen, who set the model for the present, wow, look at that, Nazi code. But him, the name of the pyramids was ascribed to the shape of their sides, to which he applied the name Piramu. When therefore Bacon declared that knowledges are as the pyramids whereof the base is history, he was thinking not alone of the 70 pyramids of the Nile extending southward from El Roche to Meidum, and those in America. Now remember what Francis Bacon said, that's who they're talking about. He said that America, known as Atlantis, right? He wrote that like in, I forget what year, was that 1500s? He said Atlantis, known as America. I've shown the book, right? Well, he knew that the former were but human monuments corresponding to the 70 peaks of Nepal constituting the throne of the gods. His thoughts rested on the grand natural symbol of the mountain trinity of Karakorum, consisting of Godwin, Asten, Mushabrum, and Gushabrum, the three Olympi, and the three grand peaks looming above the Toltec Plateau in the ancient realm of Anahuac. Anunnaki, Anahuac, remember, that's the ancient name for central Mexico, Anahuac. The house of Ana, now called Mexico. He knew that the word Sha, the ghost, implying the Holy Spirit, appears in Mushabrun and Mashinchan, names including the titles Shaman, right, or Shaman, Shah, Pasha, Papa, and Pope, just as in the name Shamrock, all right, applied by the Irish to their mystical symbol of the sacred lotus, all right? A lot of drop already in the. Just text you when you're live. Hey, I can't do that, I can't do that, guys. You gotta just, I, I don't know what you gotta do. Just gotta keep checking my channel, constantly. I'm sorry. But my patrons get a notification right away because I always share it on my Patreon. That's how a lot of my patrons know I'm going to go live, and some of the people on my Patreon. But if you're a patron, you always get notified. You get an email and you get a different notification on your app of a Patreon. Okay, I'm just saying. To him, the symbolisms of the two pyramidal trinities at El Roche and Giza, the three-stage truncate at Medum called the false pyramid, and the tiara of the Chaldean, Assyrian, and Egyptian hierarchs was plain. Therefore, in Popocatapelt, side petal of the lotus, which this is American, right? Like the triangular leaf of the ivy, has ever been deemed a natural symbol of the trinitic principle of Father, Mother, and Son. Only the stupid, therefore, will dismiss as a meaningless fable the myth of the sacred lotus, upon which the Brahmins portrayed Lakshmi, the Sakti or female complement of Brahma, afloat upon the sea of eternity. Manifestly, the sacred lotus associated in the Egyptian pictographs with Isis also was deemed a holy symbol by the Byzantine Christian, who in their first portrayals of the Virgin Mary placed it in her hands, all right? So again, remember all the past research we've done, we're talking about so-called ancient Egypt, right? That's in America, Isis related to the Corn Mother and Isis, remember Queen Mu. Isis means little sister, who's the real so-called Isis. These are real people, these mythological things that ain't just symbolic. And what is the lotus really symbolizing? And how does it relate to corn? And why is Isis related to the lotus? Remember that video, guys. Remember the fleur de lis and corn. But Popocatépetl is not the only American mystery Genesis may be made to explain. It also shows why the Spaniards found the Temple of the Cross standing at Palenque, in the realm of Trujillo, near Veracruz, the true cross, all right? Veracruz means the true cross. Why the prehistoric symbol of the Cheyenne was the true cross, identical with the Tau, all right? Listen, the Cheyenne had the symbol of the cross looking like the Tau of the Egyptians, right? Constituting one of the 12 signs of the zodiac, and the Ankh shown in the hand of the Egyptian god Ptah, with which Isis and Anna, the mother of Mary, were associated before the crucifixion. This is before Christianity. They were already associated with it, huh? Why a city in the scorched earth of Arizona? Look at that, Arizona. And also an island in Polynesia bear the name Phoenix. It all has something, there's a relation and an origin. That's what she's trying to show you. She's probably going to have chapters on all this stuff, right? Knowing the implication of Phoenix and the sacred lotus, all right? You guys hearing? With reverent respect, we read in Genesis 1:27 that God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them, finding in this complete accord with the philosophic conception of the sacred lotus. With equal respect, we read Genesis 2:7, and the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. In the living soul, we recognize the Atma or Atyam or Atima at the Hindus, sorry. In truth, Genesis 1:27 merely deals with the spiritual type of man created in the image of the divine Father, while Genesis 2:7 deals with the mortal creation into which the spiritual man entered. So it was almost kind of like what I've been trying to show you, that, you know, there's kind of like two creations. There's Genesis 1 and then there's one in Genesis 2. When man lost his immortality? Thus, Genesis has made possible the various theories of human evolution that have been put forward since the time of Darwin, Huxley, and Winchell, since the time of the hijack, right? Whatever the kinship of the anthropoid primates, well, not to us, to man may have been, whatever enough has been said to show the assumption man was created in the image of God is utterly without biblical sanction and is but the product of colossal human vanity that would convert infinitude into a likeness of man himself. Manifestly an eschatology that conceives of such a God as a much idolatry as if a brazen image, instead of a figure in the clouds, were set up to represent the deity. Today we know that when Genesis was written, the philosophy of Israel was embodied in the universal tree code upon which the Kabbalah are based. Inevitably, therefore, Genesis was written in the hieratic language of the scribes constituting the adepts of the mystery of the seven spheres, called the Kabbalah. By the Syrians, the Kabidi, by the Greeks, Caribe. Remember, like we've gone over this word and the people by the Greeks, Cerberus by the Egyptians, and Serapis by the Romans. Serapis. Just talking about Thoth. Per 4 with his this understanding, we must read the story of the beginning of civilization embodied in Genesis 2, logically following the description of the birth of material man. All right, so let me just see something here, guys. It's a lot to go. A lot to go. All right. I just want to read a little bit of the intro just so you guys can see. But we're going to go right into chapter 1. And it says here, and it's going to get into some geography. All right. Which I thought pretty interesting. And I know a lot of Pan-Africans are going to have a day with this because they always like to talk about Pangea. We were connected, man. We were connected. That doesn't mean it's still older than the oldest land that came out of the waters. It's actually going to mention that today. And it doesn't mean that it didn't originate on a specific side, because you guys still try to put it on the so-called African side of so-called Pangea and Gondwana. You still try to put in your biased Afrocentric origins, right? Like out of Africa theories, right? So it's pretty interesting what this author is gonna be talking about, right? Like it's gonna try to correlate. So let's try to discern. Let's try to pull out the babies and just be ready to dodge the hijack, okay? Says here, chapter 1, Adam's Peak and the evolution of America, geography, the book of history, and the origin of American nomenclature. So much intrigue with the wonders of the New World. The Western mind concerns itself with little with those of the East, so-called East, right? Remember, what is the true East? We just got this drop the other day. What if you flip the maps too? Remember, in Hebrew, East means forward. It doesn't, like in ancient Hebrew or in a lot of ancient cultures, north, east, south, west means something else than what we associate it with today. Yet, as the grandsons of the biblical Eber, the colonizer, Eber, remember Eber? He separated himself from the Tower of Babel, from building the Tower of Babel, and his people and himself, their language was never confused. That's the stories in the apocryphal books. So biblical Eber, where they get the word Iberu, Hebrews, the colonizer of the Hebrews, visited the realms of Ophir and Havilah in the east. They beheld a wondrous sight. Above the emerald jungles of the ancient Singala today called Ceylon, where a lot of the ancient Nagas went to, talking about ancient Americans, loomed the grand conical height of Pidaruthalagala, rising to an elevation of 7,000, I think that's feet, corresponding to its septenary name and geothenic symbols. Today called Adam's Peak, its base is washed by the turquoise sea. By night, it seems like a huge pyramid of shadow holding communion with the stars. Coming to the port of Colombo, the pilgrim is directed to Anna Japura, Anna, whose name traces to the god Annapurna, the predecessor of the Hindu Brahma. Inhabiting the neighboring jungles are the mysterious pre-Aryan Pishasha, said to be the relics of the primordial red race of India, Primordial red race. Who's the red man? Copper colored. To which the red flatheads of the Australian jungles also belong. Said to be the most primitive people in the world. Their conquest by Ramachandra is described in the Ramayana. You see how they broke it down, but you got the word Maya in this word, and we've broken it. I got a video on the Ramayana and Prince Maya. There's literally a Prince Maya in the story. Maya. And again, in the Hindu stories like the Ramayana and all these Vedics, they're coming from somewhere else before they ended up in Hindustan. Coming from the Americas, guys. Here the pilgrim beholds a sculpture in the form of a demilune called the moonstone, displaying a procession around the ark of various aquatic fowl, to the first Portuguese who mistook the Aryan Brahmins for unbaptized Christians. It suggested Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark, huh? And Noah built his ark with what kind of wood? It says in the Bible with gopher wood, right? Gopher wood. Where does gopher wood grow? Only gopher wood is native to the Americas, mainly Florida, Georgia, and some parts of northern South America, the continent right over there. Assured by their priesthood that the Hindus were unbaptized Christians, when they ascended to the summit of Adam's Peak, they found there another symbol. At the center of a rectangle of natural stone, 24 by 74, they beheld the imprint of a colossal human foot, 5 feet 4 inches to 2 and 6. Here they were told by the Mohammedan Muezzin, Father Adam spent a penance of 1,000 years. It is the sign of Buddha, declared a Buddhist priest. The sign of Buddha, huh? You mean Guatemala? You mean Guatemala? You mean Guatemala Buddha? His mom is Maya. A Brahmin insisted it was the mark of Shiva, the destroyer. What did all this mean? How many Europeans had beheld this symbol during those far-off days when the Ramessides of Egypt in pre-Mosaic times were overrunning India and southern China with mercenary armies recruited from the Iberians, Etruscans, Greeks, Macedonians, Thracians, and Scythians of the Volga? So if we're talking about all these nations, and we know a lot of these nations were literally Hebrews or Israelites. How many had beheld Adam's Peak in the age of Solomon when the Israelitic descendant of Eber, the colonizer of the Hebrews, visited the realms of Ophir and Havilah in quest of the gold brought back by them to Jerusalem, right? So remember what we were reading about Haiti or Hispaniola yesterday about the rivers? The rivers had so much gold. There's so much gold in Central America. Like Costa Rica has so much gold here, guys. Colombia, Panama, Venezuela, Peru. Like there's so much gold. We're talking about where was really Ophir and Havilah. Did the Hebrews or the Hindus place the footprint on the summit of Adam's Peak? Listen to what she's saying. The answer is to be found in no one scripture, but in many. The chain of fragmentary islets constituting Adam's bridge leading from Singala to Madra at once recalled to mind the giant's causeway at the peak of Erin. I just want to show you guys that she has a lot of sources. So yeah, the introduction, she wasn't really quoting much, but in these chapters, she has a lot of sources and footnotes, and you guys can see Kings 2, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Chaldean Book of Kutan. Like, she's not just making stuff, she's correlating what she has read. Antiquity of the Jews, the Maya Chronicles, Easter Island tablets of Kalevala, like all these ancient texts, right? One notes was surprised that the Ao, Lora, and 5 other tribes of primitive red Nagas or serpent people. Remember who's the serpent kings or the snake kings? Who is the plum serpent Quetzalcoatl? What is an Amaru? Amaru means dragon or serpent too. Amaru. Khan, serpent people, huh? The red Nagas, huh? Who's the red man? Who's the red man, guys? Who they say is the red man? They mean red literally, or they mean copper-colored tribes of America? I mean, if you're late, I don't know how he's gonna hear this, but real SPT, I mean, on my Patreon, I share a lot of them. I share a lot of them on my Patreon. All you gotta do is be a Patreon, because I share new ones every month. If you wanna pay, you can just donate, help both of us out. So again, the red Nagas, the primitive red Nagas, right? Serpent people. And who's the ancient Nagas, guys? Like, we've broken this down so much. They're coming from America. So it makes sense they call them red Nagas or serpent people. Who's the snake kings? You Google snake kings, Maya right now, you see Who's the serpent people? We're not talking about alien reptilians and all this other stuff. You guys gotta ground yourself on some real foundation and not just watch ancient astronauts on the History Channel or listen to Zacharias Hitchen and or you add to your own fantasies of space and all that. So still inhabiting the region of Havila and the Naga Hills of the Deccan, not only possess windpipes, but tardens, similar to those of the Gauls. All right, tardens. Who? The Nagas. The ancient Nagas had tardens. The ancient Nagas are Mayas, so who is spreading this whole tardan thing? To the Gauls. Pay attention, guys. In addition to all this, is a visitor notes with interest that just as the Nagas still visit Adam's Peak, they also make pilgrimages to the sacred mountain of Amaracantaka. All right, there's a place there called Amaru, Amaracantaka, Amarakan, Amarakan. Do you guys see what I'm showing you? Amarakan Taka, Amarukan. You can't make this up. The mountain of the Amarakan Taka, marking exactly the meridian of Piduru Tala Sagala, confounding the Red Devils and Singala with the Red Nagas of India. All right. And then they call the Indians the Red Devils. Then they call them devils, and the Europeans are right. With the Red Nagas of India, from whom the Rajputs trace their descent. He learns with even greater surprise, red men, similar in all respect to the American Indians. I told you guys, like, I can't make this up, guys. Can't make this up. What are they talking about when they say the red man or the red Nagas or the serpent people? You see how this correlates with all our other research, right? How many books, how many people were correlating these things, you know, and their own little investigations without realizing other people were as well, but not understanding the true context of what they're really finding, you know, because a lot of them still have that idea that, yeah, Asia or Africa or out of Asia theories. Like a lot of these authors are like out of Asia theories, you know. But what is that? You remember Asia and all that? That was, first of all, that was more connected to the Americas back in the days. We're gonna see maps right now. She's gonna show some maps, right? So again, similar in all respects to the American Indians, constitute about 10% of the population of Tibet. Talking about ancient indigenous Tibet. With his attention attracted by all this, an examination of the globe shows him that Adam's Peak marks the exact antipodes of Cajamara in Peru. That the sacred mountain of Amarakan Taka stands at the antipodes of the stands at the antipodes of the great prehistoric cone of Xochicalco on the plateau of Anahuac, within the shadow of the Tolteca Trinity. Xochicalco. Who's Calco? Remember, Calco was one of the sons of Judah, of Sarah, through Sarah, a descendant of Judah, Calco, who became Cecrops in Greek writings. Calco. Okay? Xochicalco, on the plateau of Anunnaki, within the shadow of the Toltec Trinity. How strange that the name Ru should appear in both Piduru, Talagala, and Peru. Ru, the house of Ru, the land of the prehistoric Hataruna. Again, what is Peru? The land of the prehistoric Hataruna. You guys got to know what this means, like these stories from the Hindus and Southeast Asia. They were literally telling you, she's literally telling you it was from Peru. Then, too, just as there is a Puna in the Deccan of India, right, Hindustan, the great gold, silver, and emerald baron, Andean plateau bears the same name. So, which one is the origin? Which one is the duplicate? In addition to this circular temple at the summit of Chicalco in Anahuac, right, that's ancient Mexico, displays a moon stone similar to the one at Anajapura or Pura, and those to be seen at Angkor Thom, just beyond Annapuro on the Irrawaddy. Finally, just as the name Anna appears in Annapura, Rajputana, Guyana, look, Guyana, where they get in this all has an origin, guys. And Anahuac, Annapura, all right, Guyana. It appears that in the Teana Serim of the Malay Peninsula and the Ta'ana Sa. Listen, this is deep right here. Ta'ana Sa, now called Tennessee. Ta'ana Sa, that was the name of the tribe they got it from. Ta'ana Sa, Tanasa, Ta'ana Sa, now called Tennessee, as well as in Canada, right? Canada, Canan, Cana, Anada. Strange surpassing strange. All this. How can it be? How could an educated man, the visitor, ask himself, have been so ignorant of what could not be accidental? How come nobody's making the correlations? How is this a coincidence, she's saying? How come these educated scholars that teach history, how could they not see this? How could it not see that it's not accidental? He feels chagrined and angry with those who pretended to teach him the history not only of America, but civilization. Get what she's saying? Because when you really start learning about the history of America, especially the ancient and prehistory, that is literally the history of civilization, the true old world. He who is, what about Ghana? Yeah, but what about it? I see Anna, but again, which one's the duplicate? Which one's the original? To his amazement, he finds no history of America. You guys know when he says Guyana here, he's talking about Guyana in South America, right? He's not talking about Ghana. That's how it originally was spelled and called, Guyana. To his amazement, he finds no history of America, which answers the questions raised by Adam's Peak. Amarakan, Taka, that's a mountain in the Southeast Asia, guys. Amarakan. And Shoshi Kalko, the Castle of Flowers. Within the shadow of Popocatépetl, all right, that's the volcano, and Iztaccíhuatl, those two volcanoes overlooking Tenochtitlan. Just like Dov described, he was coming from a land and an island and surrounded by water by two volcanoes that actually erupted and he had to flee. That's in the Emerald Tablets and the Book of the Dead. Okay? And Orizaba. Look at that, Arizaba, Orizaba. And when he sets out to answer them for himself, he finds they involve the whole history of man. When you actually start doing the history, you actually see it involves the whole history of man. Remember that the origins and stories of the Americans is the primitive stories of mankind. I just read that, in so many different books. Being of a logical turn of mind and noting the correspondences between the forms of these natural symbols, their names and geodetic symbols, he puts aside the available histories of civilization, which begin the story of human events about the time of the Trinity of Giza was reared. So, of course, go way before that. Even Caral Supe in Peru is older than pyramids of Giza and all that. So, Obviously, little is to be learned from works conveniently relegating the grand monuments of the earth to the archaic age. In the order followed by the Hebraic scribes who logically explain the creation of the earth before placing man upon it, he finds a sound guide. Following their example, he soon finds in the history of the earth a romance surpassing any fiction. I see no signs of a beginning, no prospect of an end. Startling as this statement from the father of modern geology, the father of modern geology, was to those trained in the old schools of thought, it was but a confirmation of Raleigh's statement that history had triumphed over time. Manifestly like Bacon, he too was initiate of the ancient mysteries. What do they mean by that? Freemasons. All right, these were Freemasons. They had the drop a little bit. They were initiated. They were able to see some of these ancient texts. Remember, it was only for the initiates. Oh, Solon, Solon, John Hellenes are but children, and there is never an old man who is a Hellene. So this is from, I get the Greeks were saying this. Remember, they were saying, you guys are like babies. He was telling Solon. Solon is the guy who told Plato the story of Atlantis, right? So Solon was saying, if you only knew that the Hellenes, or so-called Greeks, Hellenized people, Hellenes, right? Hellenized people. You guys are like babies compared to the true old world, Atlantis. The speaker went on, I mean to say that in mind you are all young. There is no old opinion handed down among you by ancient tradition, nor any science which is hoary with age. And I will tell you the reason of this. There have been and will be again many destructions of mankind arising out of many causes. The greatest have been brought about by the agencies of fire and water, and other lesser ones by innumerable other causes. All right. What do you say? You guys don't even know. You guys don't even have a real origin to anything. You guys have a young mind. All you guys inherited all this knowledge. Because there has been, he's saying, resets or destructions, cataclysms, different ages, and they had forgotten. They had forgotten. Mason is different from me. Yeah, Mason is a guy who does like, stonework, right? But because the Freemason, is sacred geometry, the knowledge of that is Freemasonry. The knowledge of how to build or architecture and stuff like that, like the pyramids and stuff, that's knowledge. And it got it from Solomon when he built his temple. But it does go a lot before that. Remember the book we literally read, Sacred Mysteries of the Maya, and where the Freemason really originated from, like the whole idea of architecture and all that, and sacred geometry. We ain't black or Greek. Well, yeah, so-called Greek, right? So-called black. But do you relate to the people they call so-called ancient Greeks? Yes, you do. This is what I'm trying to say. Remember all the past research. Who are the Trojans? Who are the Macedonians? Who are the who's Cecrops? I just told you earlier. That's Calchas, son of Judah. Who founded Troy? Who are the Athenians? Who are the Athenians? Remember. So Soches, the high priest of Neve, the Egyptian counterpart of Athene, goddess of wisdom and war, whose arrows represented the shafts of human enlightenment. Arrows, right? Bow and arrow. Was said by Plato to have declared to one of the 7 wise men of Greece who visited Sais in BC 602. In truth, Plato, the pupil of Socrates and the tutor of Aristotle, had merely anticipated Josephus, who said that Father Adam was warned of 2 earth destructions, one by fire and the other by weight of waters, implying by the fire the cataclysmic disturbances of which the volcanoes, right? That's not over there in Mesopotamia, that's not over there in Egypt, ain't no volcanoes. The continents and the oceans were born, and by the waters, the biblical deluge, right? The great flood, that brought the Earth to its present form. Today we are told that out of the whirling mass of gaseous matter that began to cool down about, was that 2 billion, 500 million years ago? You know, we take this with a grain of salt. What are they basing it off, right? This is what they tell people, right? Like, oh, the world is 4 billion, Remember, we did the math the other day, guys, about what the Most High said in the Bible. He said, well, a day to you guys is 1,000 years. It's just a day for me. So if you start doing the math, right? Start doing the math, you got 6 days. They say 6 days of creation, that's 6,000 years. If we go by that math, right? So they say, oh, the world's only 6,000 years. What if they were just talking about the creation? Because again, 6 days to us, 6 days to God is 6,000 years to us, according to what the Bible says, right? According. I'm not saying it is. I'm just telling you, reminding you. All right. So 2.5 billion years ago, the original Earth crust was crystallized. Crystallized core with the crystallized trees growing out of it, right? These giant silicon trees, crystallized trees. Gradually, attaining through uplifts and submergences the four forms shown by the accompanying plates. In addition to what is disclosed by these maps, the geological ages predicted by Lyell have been correlated to solar time with what is deemed approximate accuracy and with the correction of a few years brought into accord with the zodiacal calendar of the Brahmin Tamils are here shown. All right, so this is according to supposedly, right? But again, I got a future video on this. I hope to get to it. When they start really looking at the zodiacal maps and these calendars from these ancient cultures, it actually goes back maximum 50,000. They all do. Kind of all of them do. And that they've been mistranslating all these texts. But anyways, let's go with what they're saying here. Primordial, they're saying lasted 171 that million years, and primary lasted that much. Secondary lasted 37. Tertiary lasted 6 million, and so on. Quaternary, the age of man, they're saying. So remember, we found man in Tertiary and Pliocene times in America. The successive forms of the Earth did not come into being suddenly, but were the result of gradual change attended by periodic seismic and other disturbances. Unfortunately, for many reasons, including the foolishness that has been written about the Atlantean world, grave suspicion attaches to anything that is said about it. Because people use Atlantis as like a myth and they add their own spin to it, it's not taken serious. So they add suspicion to anything that is attached to it or said about it. A lot of people don't take it serious when we do the Atlantis videos. I get what she's saying. Michael Amos says, I read in scripture that can only go back 5,000 years. So whose days are you counting? The Most Highs or humans? Michael Amos. This is what I'm trying to tell you. Michael Amos. So are you telling me there's no scripture in the Bible that says that to God 1 day is 1,000 years to man? Are you telling me there's no scripture like that? Because you say you read scripture? Well, I read scripture too. And as humans, do we understand everything in scripture and it hasn't been translated correctly from the original form it was written in after thousands and thousands and thousands of years? Michael Amos. Again, don't take none of this personal, guys. We have to be able to discern and dodge the hedges when we need to, but also there's always room to learn new things. And it doesn't go against scripture. Nobody's trying to go against the Most High when we say this stuff. Because again, 1 day to the Most High is 1,000 years to us. So if you start doing the math, it actually starts going into 2 billion years. Anyways, let's go. Unfortunately, for many reasons, including the fooling, okay, we got that. The fact is, however, Atlantis was merely the form possessed by the Earth. Listen, But Atlantis, she's saying, was merely the form possessed by the Earth during the Tertiary, and that's probably age, right? Tertiary age. All right, so check it out. Now we got maps, guys. We got some maps here. All right. So hypothetical, right? Because nobody was there. Hypothetical Pacific landmass, right? Look, a landmass. See the dotted lines, guys? Those are continents where they used to be. All right. So now they're showing like this is like the North Pole, right? Look, hypothetical Atlantic landmass. Hypothetical, remember. Brazilian landmass. You got Greenland, the British Island, Greenland, England and Ireland. So this is what they're saying. Map 1, confirmation of land and sea in the northern hemisphere at the beginning of the primary period. Very long time ago, they're saying. Indian landmass. They look different, right? We move on. Let me just flip this real quick. Hold on. I know there's a way to do that. You rotate. There we go. Rotate right. Okay. Give it a second. Give it a second because it's like loading. Okay. So this would be map 2, the continents of the Cambrian epoch. Hypothetical, right? Hypothetical. What is it showing? So look what it's showing. See the dotted lines, guys? It's saying that this was one landmass, right? And then up here was one landmass. Okay. So literally Europe connected to parts of America. They're calling this the Afro-Brazilian continent. This is the Pan-Africans love this stuff. They love it. The Russian platform, Cambrian. All right. Again, hypothetical. And then we move on. This is another map. This would be the Earth of the Jurassic period. Hypothetical, right? Supposedly. What is it showing here? Look, this is deep. It's literally showing the Earth, the oceans like a river. It's showing the oceans like a river. And this is kind of how I picture when they're saying Genesis, Garden of Eden had 4 rivers. I feel like, this is my theory, right? I feel like they were just talking about the oceans as rivers when they were smaller and there was a lot of land. So all this up here is one landmass, right? I believe they call it Laurasia. What does that show? That the oldest land of the world right here, right? North America, the Appalachians, Quebec, right? Like Augusto, like Louis Agassiz said, right? The oldest land, remember? Right? Was connected to Europe or Northern Europe. So connected to Ireland and the British Isles. And this is what I'm trying to tell you guys. I believe the British Isles was very much connected to the North America. It wasn't separated. That's why there's a lot of history between the both. That's why we say Chaldea here, Assyria, Chaldea, Samaria, you know, it was connected to the true old world or the oldest part of the world. He's gonna literally tell you and remind you about that. I'm not, you know. And then look, Pacific continent, which is also on this side. There was a landmass here. Again, only a river showing like California under. Look, the real Red Sea. Is that the real Red Sea? Then it goes through the Caribbean. And then a river goes through the Sahara, right? In the Mediterranean, there was water there. But all this was connected. They call it the Afro-Brazilian continent or Gondwana. That's what they call it, Gondwana. Afro-Eurasia. But right now it's not Afro-Eurasia. It's actually Eurasia, Laurasia. It's called Laurasia, which is North America and Europe coming together. And Asia, right? So this is again map 3. We go on to the next map. This would be map 4, the Earth of the Nummulitic period. That the lower of the dotted line shows the limit of the area on which the water could encroach. All right, so again, the dotted lines are the continents, and in between is the water. So it says Pacific continent is sinking at this point, they're saying, right? And then you got the Afro-Brazilian continent. It's not all of Africa, it's not, it's most of South America. And then you got over here, Sino-Siberian continent. Scandinavian barrier, North Atlantic continent, right? North Atlantic, which includes, look, the British Isles. It's still, the British Isles still connected to North America. And now it goes down into Mexico. It seems Florida and the Southeast is underwater at this point. All right. Just wanted to show this just to have context, right? Oh, okay. Now let's go back to the book and put it back. Rotate left. Okay. There we go. So where did we leave off? Now I got to go back just so we can know. So bear with me, we're live. So the fact is, however, Atlantis was merely the form possessed by the earth during the Tertiary. It says when, according to Genesis 6, the command was given to Noah to build the ark. That's when he's saying, that's what she's saying, that's when the ark and the flood happened. All right. And again, what wood did Noah use to build the ark? Go for wood. Indigenous to the Americas, go for wood. All right, Amos, cool. Furthermore, today it is known that the evolution of the fourth form possessed by the earth in the Nummulitic or Eocene period of the Tertiary began with the Miocene cataclysm, which began about 3 and ended about 2.5 million years ago. Thus, the form of the earth in the Atlantean cycle, right, underwent the changes that brought the continents and the oceans toward the present form. Is that like in the time when the Bible says, in the time of Peleg, the earth was split, or the people were split, or the land masses were split, right? In the days of Peleg. Who is Peleg? The son of Eber, where eventually Abraham comes out of Peleg, right? What is the other son of Eber? Joktan, or Joktan, who is also the father of Jarub, the progenitor of the pure Arabs, and also the Yoruba, Yoruba, or the pure Arabs coming out of Yemen. That's when Joktan settled there. Maybe after the great split, after the great cataclysm. That's what, I'm just trying to reference stuff, So that's the form of the earth. That's when it was, that's what they're saying, the Tertiary age is when we get our modern continents and oceans. The idea of Dr. Scharf and that the Azores, Canaries, and Madeiras, and Cape Verde Islands were all part of the submerged continental landmass explored by Sir John Ross is no longer tenable. Since then, much new light has been thrown upon the origin of these islands. There was a very ancient continental bond between Northern Europe and North America. Okay, again, you see what I'm saying? There was what? A very ancient continental bond between Northern Europe and North America. This is what I'm trying to tell you. The British Isles, Ireland, all that was connected to North America, guys. That's why they're finding mounds over there. That's why they're finding many things that they find in America. That's why they're finding inscriptions, right? Like what is it called? Olum? That ancient Gaelic inscription, you see? Another continental bond, also very ancient, between the massive Africa and South America, Gondwana, and extending into like Australia and all that. Not just. Thus, the region of the Atlantic until an era of ruin, the end of which was the Tertiary, was occupied by a continental mass, bounded on the south by a chain of mountains, and which was also submerged long before the collapse of those volcanic lands, of which the Azores seem to be the last vestiges. All right. So again, even at this time when there's supposedly, there's a Gondwana, still the oldest land that came out first was in North America. Still not in Gondwana. So you got to break out of your whole Afrocentric, like, still bias. Like, you guys still trying to add Africa into this. Has nothing to do with Pan-Africanism. Thus, the region of Atlantic until an era of ruin, at the end of which the territory was occupied by continent bounded the south by a chain of mountains. Oh, we got that already. It says, in place of the South Atlantic Ocean, there was likewise for many thousands of centuries a continent very deeply engulfed beneath the sea. The same writer referred to collapses at the close of the Miocene in the folded Mediterranean zone and in the two continental areas, continuing up to the final annihilation of the continents. After this, in the bottom of the immense maritime domain resulting from these subsidences, he tells us appeared a new design whose general direction is north and south. Next, he refers to the extreme mobility of the Atlantis region. The Atlantis region. This is what I'm trying to tell you. It's a region which was, again, much of it connected to what we call America today. Again, this region, right, from the certainty of the occurrences of immense depressions when islands and even continents have disappeared, the certainty that some of these depressions date as from yesterday are of quaternary age. He reached the conclusion that these land masses might have been seen by man. So, listen to what they're saying. The probably peoples, probably civilizations. Why is there a story of Atlantis and the flood and all that? And continents going down and lands going down and destructions and cataclysms and many ages of man, right? Like in the Americas, we got like the fifth or sixth age, and the Hindu and Egyptian, there's like the fourth or fifth age, like there's different ages, right? Or resets, what they're calling today resets, right? These mud flood researcher resets. Oh, there's been a reset. Oh yeah, there's been resets. But not always on purpose, done by man. That's the thing. You're still on that conspiracy. Oh, Tartary. Oh, they reset on purpose. No, a lot of the time, man has no control over this, guys. Hope you're enjoying the readings. I like kind of reading these kind of books because I like to corroborate with my other research and just see, you know, certain things to think about, right? Like to add to the research we've already done. You know, try to be logical, try to have some kind of context and background, right? So he reached conclusion that these land masses might have been seen by man. See, he concluded, how much there is to encourage those who still hold out for Plato's narrative. Plato's narrative, huh? Atlantis, right? America. Geologically speaking, the Platonic theory of Atlantis is highly probable. Again, geologically speaking, it's highly probable that there wasn't that so-called Atlantis and some of it sank. And when you know geology, know the history. Reviewing Termier's article that the late Professor Schuchert of Yale said, the Azores are true volcanic and oceanic islands, and it is almost certain they never had land connections with the continents or on either side of the Atlantic Ocean. So have Plato, Posidonius, Diodorus Siculus, Plutarch, Marcellus, Proclus, Montaigne, Francis Bacon, Siguenza, Thompson, Madame Blavatsky, that's the hijack, Volquarson, Donnelly, Wilson, and a host of others been confirmed by one of the highest modern authorities. Therefore, whoa, what's that? Ask AI. No, I don't want to ask AI nothing. AI don't know. Come on, man. I don't know what's going on here. I didn't ask you to, yo, that's the hijack. I didn't even know I had AI on this. What's going on? You see what I'm saying, guys? Now everything's AI. They must have updated my Acrobat app. I have that turned off. I don't like asking AI anything. You guys saw what happened yesterday. They don't know nothing. It doesn't know nothing. It's a hijack. It's a gatekeeper. No, I don't want to know about Madame. I know enough about Madame Blavatsky and her theological society. Her and her master teacher, Jamal Afghani, right? Who supposedly he was an ascended master, but he was actually a real person. And he was one of the same teachers of Drew Ali. Yeah, Thomas Drew. Yeah, check out my video on Jamal Afghani. I'm not making this up. All his students went to create movements. They all went and created movements. Aleister Crowley, Madame Blavatsky, Drew Ali, and all the rest of them. All right, let me not get off topic. Therefore, we may dismiss the idea that when Plato came to deal with the antediluvian world, he was writing a mere fable. So he's saying people that dismiss the Atlantis story, that's they're trying to say it's just a fable, you know, you got to dismiss that. It's real. The geology kind of shows there was changes in continents and all that. Today we know that the oldest mountains, listen, what are the oldest mountains of the earth of which only the trace remains in the so-called Huronian range common to Central Asia, the Arctic Islands, and Canada had been leveled by erosion when the Cordillera of the Western Hemisphere, listen, the Appalachians, the Alpine range of Europe, and the Great Ranges of Asia were upheaved. So after the oldest lands in Canada, then came the Appalachians, which is still one of the oldest mountain chains in the world. We've shown that. But now they're not tall because so much erosion has gone on that they're lower now. But the Appalachians were much, much higher. There was volcanoes in Georgia and there was a lot of things. Things have changed, guys. Things have changed a lot. And again, I'm gonna go over this for the new people, guys. How does he know Canada's the oldest land? How does he know? This is just for the new people, right? Geological sketches. Make sure you read it, right? PDF. We go to see the most renowned geologist, the guy you have to study if you take geology in college, right? I'm gonna show you what he says in chapter 1, right on page 1. I don't know why this is scanned so bad, but here we go. Okay. It says here, chapter 1, America, the Old World. America. America, the Old World, firstborn among the continents. Firstborn among the continents, America, so far as her physical history is concerned, has been falsely denominated the New World. Hers was the first dry land lifted out of the waters. Hers, the first shore washed by the ocean that enveloped all the earth beside, and while Europe was represented only by islands rising here and there above the sea, America already stretched in an unbroken line of land from Nova Scotia to the far west. America, the Old World. America, the true Old World. It just correlated, right? She said Canada. He was talking about that part of the Laurentian Mountains. Laurentian Mountains. Oldest land. Let's see if it comes up. This is, Laurentian Mountains. Quebec, Canada, right? Canada, the Laurentians, a very concise history. I don't know, I've never read this twice. Let's see what it says. Very, very long ago, over a billion years at least, the first mountain range on Earth. Listen, the first mountain range on Earth was squeezed upward by the movements of tectonic plates deep beneath the surface of the planet. These first mountains are still here, although altered by ancient volcanic activity and worn and scraped by several ice ages. In Quebec, this mountainous area is called the Laurentians. Okay? Okay? Where in Canada? Like the book just said, in Canada. And Canada. Ana, Canan, Canada, Cananda, Cananda, Canan, Canada, Ana. Okay? So even though it quoted other ones, this was the first. This was the first. You guys think we're making this up? You guys think we're being biased? You guys want to talk about Pangea? Oh, Kurimeo, it was connected to South America. So that came later. Even that came later. North America, parts of North America were already out way before that. It was the first mountains. Again, today we know that the oldest mountains, right, on Earth, the oldest mountains, we know. Do we know that? Does everybody know this? No, they don't. Not everybody knows this. That's why they're still Pan-Africanizing. That's why they're still Mesopotamian. Mesopotamianizing. They say that's the cradle of civilization. And remember, we got the Appalachians, also very old. Apollo, where's the true Mount Olympus? We got a whole video on that, guys. Where's the true Mount Olympus? It was in the Appalachian Mountains. That was the true Mount Olympus there, where the gods were, right? And we do play ball games here in sports, right? In the Americas, actually, we were the first to play ball games and all that. We were the first. So it makes sense, right? Concurrently, the Great Ridge of Tenerife in the Atlantic, of which the Azores and Canaries are the remnant, rose above the sea, and also the Atlas Mountains of Northwest Africa. So again, after. This all happened after. The Pyrenees and the mountains of Equatorial Africa. These mountains were terrestrial skeletons, so to speak, around which new land masses formed by the process of agglomeration. Accordingly, long ago, the original Mount Atlas was placed by a great scientist in the vanished part of the ridge of Tenerife. So listen, Mount Atlas was somewhere else. Tenerife is in the Azores, the Atlantic, and today is said to have stood 40 north, 30 degrees west in the area of which the Azores are the remnant. That was the real Mount Atlas, not what they say it is today in Mauritania. Pay attention. So going back, it says when Adam's Peak was upheaved, some of the islands of the Japanese archipelago were separated from the Sino-Siberian landmass, which we saw earlier, the map, and now the Scandinavian barrier of the Eocene, which had appeared in the fourth form, gradually connected with Karelia. Concurrently, a great land bridge came into being, including France and the Low Countries, connecting the North Atlantic continent with the Alps. It was connected all the way to France. You see that? So this is what I'm saying, guys. Why they finding mounds over there and giants in the bones, same thing. At the same time, a new continent in the Atlantic gathered around the ridge of Tenerife. Gradually, according to the Critias of Plato, listen, this continent, which as shown by his own words, was arbitrarily called Atlantis by him, extended eastward until it came close to the Pillars of Hercules, right? The Straits of Gibraltar, that's what they call them today, where Morocco and Spain meet, and then it goes into the Mediterranean or out into the Atlantic, and eventually included the present islets of the harbor of Gadis or Cadiz, owing its name to Gadis, the Greek Gaderius. Gradually, to the north of Africa was connected with the present Europe. So what? North Africa was what? Connected with present Europe. That was Europe. North Africa was Europe. So when we're saying, oh, nah, Kurimeo, the Sephardic Jews and the Moors were North African, well, they were ancient Europeans then. Europa, 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 Europa. Supposed to be a black woman, right? As it expanded southward through the region of the Mediterranean that was submerged in 850,000 BC by the present sea. So, we dodged the hijack with the numbers. How does everybody know all this stuff? This is just based on what the geologists and scientists say. So she's just referencing that. Exactly, Red Vader. Black Lion, what's up, bro? As volcanoes erupt in the ocean, old lands rise out of the waters and new lands forms. Yep. This is what's been going on. This is what we're saying. Before the end of the Tertiary, the land bridge of the north had been broken. Remember that land bridge, North America connected to Europe, right? Ireland, the British Isles, was part of the Laurasia or North American continent. So that land bridge had been broken. Thereupon, the landmass, which had detached itself from North Atlantic continent, attached itself to Africa to form Libya, and was united to Asia along the line of the Urals and the Caucasus. Concurrently, the remnant of the North Atlantic continent and Brazil were connected by the uplift of Panama, formerly part of the Pacific continent, all right? This part is deep, right? Because as it's going to say, a lot of, if you guys don't know, the Americas weren't always connected, as we saw the old maps, right? The old landforms, right? They weren't connected. It was the North Laurasian, and then it was Gondwana, and North and South America weren't connected. So they're saying that Central American part was actually part of a Pacific continent that actually got disconnected from, or, broken off, and then it connected into North and South America, creating Central America. which is pretty deep. Why? Because when we talk about Central America, right, we got the Mayas and all these civilizations, right? And remember who's the Nagas that went into Hindustan? What is the whole story? So it makes sense that they might have been part of the Pacific continent, what they're calling Lemuria. This is what I'm trying to tell you when I say Lemuria was all connected to what we call America today. In addition to all this, it is vitally important to remember that until 850,000 BC, when the Atlantic continent was shattered. Now remember, in the Bible it says, in the days of Peleg, the land was separated, right? The lands were separated, or the people, lands or people were separated, right? Is that what they're talking about? The Atlantic continent was shattered. The present Europe was separated more widely from the North Atlantic continent. So Europe, Northern Europe again, was part of North Atlantic continent, guys, with North America. That until the Mediterranean was submerged, Creta, land was connected, or Ion was connected with Greca, Ion, the delta of the Nile and Asia Minor. Nor was there until this time any Black Sea. There was no Black Sea over there. In short, Samothrace, of which the present island of Samothrax is a remnant, was an inhabitable realm. Geology also shows that until the cataclysm of 10,000 BC, so, this is a big one because a lot of people go with something happened 10,000, 12,000 years ago, right? That's what they say. A comet came, like Graham Hancock and all these people. Oh, that's when Atlantis went down. And, that's when a lot of these civilizations just went extinct, like the ones in, what's it called? Titicaca, Teotihuacan and all them. Tiwanaku, that's what I meant, Tiwanaku in Bolivia, which they say was actually sea level back 10,000 years ago, and somehow it rised. Picture all that, all the studies we've done, right? So when whatever remained of the Pacific continent, already sinking in the territory, was shattered, the Gobi and the present Karakum, Kara means black, Kum rise, a desert east of the Caspian Sea, and north of Irania were inland seas, all right? All that was water. So what do you mean that's the old world? What do you mean that's where everything started? That was water. That was water. When America already had land connecting all the way from, remember what it said? Nova Scotia all the way to the west, California and the Pacific. Already land connected. Finally, one must bear in mind that although a glaciation occurred in the secondary until 850,000 BC, when the Great Ice Age began with the Pleistocene of the Quaternary, Sealand and its remnants in the Arctic zone constituted a verdant realm, meaning it was green. The Arctic was green, where it waved the magnolias and palm trees. All right, they have found all this stuff fossilized, palm trees and all that in the Arctic zone, guys. Pay attention, right? So verdant realms where wave the magnolias and palm trees that lie beneath the glaciers of Greenland's icy mountains. You guys know about that part? You guys know they have found palm trees and everything fossilized there? Obviously, that was green at some point, right? Now, two, the deserts of Arabia and the Sahara were covered with verdure. It was green there too, eventually probably bringing the Pleistocene of the Quaternary to an end. The warm waters of the Arctic Sea broke through the shoulders of the Euro-Asian landmass, separating Great Britain from Brittany. Great Britain from what? Brittany, Lower France. Now it became an island. Great Britain became an island. You can literally see the break, because if you look at a lot of parts of the British Isles, it's literally like cliffs. It's like cliffs broken and it goes into the water and ocean. There's no beach. A lot of parts of the British Isles, there's no beach. It's just like a cliff, guys, that goes into the ocean. Like it broke. And all people who are from there know what I'm talking about. Now, two, in all probability, the land bridge from Labrador, listen, the land bridge from Labrador to Great Britain. So they want to always to think about, oh, a land bridge, the Bering Strait, oh, there's a land bridge, which still is, there is still a little land bridge, and very cold parts or times, right, you can still travel. But there was a land bridge in a lot of different places of the world. They don't talk about these things to us. They want us to think one thing always. But I'm trying to show you, like, this is what I've been always saying when I'm trying to tell you that the British Isles was very connected to ancient America. Now you understand what I'm trying to say. Now you understand what I was saying. Again, not two in all probability. The land bridge from Labrador, that's Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, up there in Canada, to Great Britain, already broken, suffered more submergences, leaving Newfoundland, Greenland, Iceland, and the Faroe Islands, the Shetlands, the Orkneys, the Hebrides, and Ireland in their present forms, man. I told you guys. So remember what they were saying. What if man saw this? What if people lived during these times? You understand? They did. They did. I got a whole video coming next. I'll probably read it tomorrow. We're gonna get into that book, The Discovery of Europe, or The American Discovery of Europe, or The Discovery of Europe by Americans. I forget the title name, but we're gonna read a chapter about the Arctic people going over there. But were they really just going by sea, or were they going through the land bridge? Get it? So it appears that North America, oh, it appears, was not only connected with Europe. Okay, I've been saying, and I know my followers for a long time know what I'm talking, know, what I'm saying. I've been saying this for the longest time. I've been trying to tell you Ireland, Chaldea is part of the true old world, is part of North America. It all connects. How does Abraham go from Chaldea back to Canaan? He probably used the land bridge. He probably could have walked over there on horse or camel. We always thought ocean. We think in ocean. Oh, everybody's ocean. Not everybody was seafaring. A lot of people could just walk. There was land bridges, guys. So it appears again that North America originally was not only connected with Europe, but until a relatively late time was not connected with South America. That's what I was saying earlier. It wasn't. North America and South America were not connected. They were two different land masses, two different continents. That South America had not only been connected with Africa, but Central America came to include a part of the Pacific continent. So where did Central America come from all of a sudden? It was part of the Pacific continent, as what's left of the remnant, which makes sense. It makes so much sense to me, guys. The motherland, Maya, right? Maya going over. Did they really go over? Was there a land bridge? Who are the Nagas? All these pyramids over there in Southeast Asia. Why did the words relate? Why did the histories relate? Why is there, listen, why is there genetic relations with South American indigenous people and Southeast Pacific Islanders? Right? They have studies on this. Why do they share certain genetic relations, right? Code, DNA. Picture that. Only with this picture of the antediluvian world, right? I just said picture that. So once you have this context, right? Once you have this reference, right? Only with this reference or picture of the antediluvian world, when we talk about antediluvian, before the flood, in mind, you gotta have this context when you're talking about ancient history. You can't just be thinking Africa, Africa, Africa. That's the thing about y'all Pan-Africans. Africa, Africa, Africa. So once you have this true context of how the geology was, geography, in mind, it is possible to relate human to terrestrial evolution and gain an idea approximating the history of America. You get a true history of the American importance and the role it played in antediluvian or ancient times or prehistoric times. That's right, Rob. Four corners, right? Four winds, exactly. Greetings, brother and sisters. I pray the most greetings, man. Greetings, welcome. If you just joined us, try to watch from the beginning a little bit, in case you're late, but it's all good if you stick around right now. It says, because Western historians, as a rule, have disdained to master esoteric geographical nomenclature, the utmost confusion has resulted from jumbling of esoteric and modern geographical names. All right, that's deep what it's saying right here. Is it confusion or is it done on purpose? The esoteric science upon which the Hindu, which is the ancient Nagas, right? Chaldeans, ancient Ireland, Egyptians, as in America, right? Ancient Egypt was in America, or what you call, what the Bible is referencing as so-called ancient Egypt. Hebrew, where's the Hebrews? Where's Eber people from? Greek, so-called Greeks, right? Remember, so-called, all these are tags. Remember, Persian, who's the Persians? Persians descend from Elam. They were the Elamites. Those are the true Persians. Elam was a son of Shem. Who is Shem? A son of Noah. Where was Noah coming from? He built his ship from gopher wood, which only grows in the Americas. Chinese, huh? Who's the first Chinese? Who's the first king? Futan. Remember, we just read this the other day, most likely coming out of Peru. And other ancient scriptures did not concern itself with the modern geographical divisions of continents and islands. So they're saying, listen, these ancient cultures weren't thinking in modern terms of what the world looks like today. They weren't thinking like that. So this is what I'm saying about, oh yeah, they duplicating names. No, they named that over there Israel, right? For example, or they named that, the Holy Land. They named that Persia. What if Persia was somewhere else? Chaldea, right? Chaldea, huh? Ireland, Caledonia, Chaldees. I mean, we got a whole drop on that, guys. If you haven't watched that whole Ireland series, man, I'm telling you, it correlates with this. It correlates perfectly with this. It literally proves this. Yeah, when you flip the maps, we know. Looking at the successive forms of the earth, each as a continent in the sense of the visible plane among the seven spheres with which Dante dwelt in his Divina Commedia, in complete accord with the findings of modern geology, they applied to them the names here shown. 1. The sacred and imperishable land, so called because parts of the earth shown in the first plate have never been submerged. Like I said, guys, when I say not all of so-called Atlantis went down, a lot of it is still up. Again, a lot of the parts of the earth are still are not submerged, like the Quebec area, the oldest land, like the Appalachian Mountains. That was one of the oldest, literally one of the oldest mountain chains in the world. It's still above water. It has never been submerged. That's what they were calling the Antilla Island. Remember, the map of the Antilla Island was literally from the Mississippi to the East Coast. You can see Florida and the Gulf of Mexico, and on top you can see the Susquehanna River. Literally all the bays, the Chesapeake Bay, Florida sticking out, the Mississippi going up, like literally, guys, we've shown that. The Hyperborea, number 2, so called by the Greeks, because it existed before the frost god Boreas fixed his clutches on the Arctic zone of the earth in its Cambrian form, all right? Hyperborea when it was green in the Arctic. Atala, right? Add the Greek tis at the end of this. You get Atlantis, right? The Jurassic form, Atatlan. And then you got Atlantis, number 4, the Numilic form. And then 5, America, the whole earth in the quaternary form. Wow. America was the whole earth in the quaternary form. What are you talking about? Africa, Mama Africa. What are you talking? You got to talk about Grandma America then, if you want to talk about Mama Africa. But this is the true motherland. Esoterically, the great bird-shaped Afro-Brazilian continent of the primary, above which appears the geological coronet, was the landmass known to the ancients as Lemuria, today called Gondwana land. I told you what? Brazilian Lemuria. And they say Lemuria was in the Pacific. But how would it be in the Pacific if it's connected to so-called Africa or Afro? Lemuria, today called Gondwana land, okay? Gondwana land, like the thumbnail I showed, right, in of this video, of which Gondwana in India is a remnant. To the Hindus and their predecessors, the Pacific continent of the secondary and tertiary was known as Daitya, and the North Atlantic continent was Ruta. Ruta, okay? That's what it was called in the Hindu text, guys. That's deep right there. This is what I was saying. Literally what I've been trying to tell you was, so when they're talking about in the Bhagavad Gita or in the Ramayana, these Hindu Vedics or stories, they do mention Ruta. Oh, the gods came, the Nagas came from Ruta. Oh, you mean the North Atlantic continent, huh? You mean the North Atlantic continent, huh? While the great island that evolved in the Indian Ocean and was destroyed by the Miocene cataclysm, of which Ceylon is a remnant, was known as Lanka. Also, they applied to the present Asia the name Kotalu, of which the antipodes were called Patala, the synonym of hell. Wow. To the Arctic continent, they gave the name Ceylon, to which New Zealand at the antipodes owes its name, while Australasia was called the land of the Southern Cross. Remember, Australia just meant Southern continent. It wasn't just what we think of Australia today. Antarctica was called Australasia too. Australasia, the land of the Southern Cross, and the Celebes, the land of the heaven and earth. For reasons that will appear, the cosmology of the Greeks did not go back behind the nummulitic form of the earth. So the Greeks were very limited, is what she's saying. They didn't go as far back. To their ancestors, all that part of Ceylon in the Arctic zone, which was destroyed in the transition from the second to the third form, was designated as Tartarus, of which the Sea of Tartary retains the name. Because the Sino-Siberian continent constituting the Hindu Patala was the first of the 5 tertiary landmasses to come into being. Appropriately, the Greeks assigned to it the name of Asia, the putative oldest daughter of Oceanus. And remember, Oceanus is from America, and to the North Atlantic continent, they gave the name of Atlas. So where was Atlas? And man, we've gone over this, guys. Come on now, you see? You see how everything correlates, right? Who is the son of Poseidon, right? The god of the ocean. Atlas, right? The North Atlantic, North America, and connected to Northern Europe. Atlas, huh? They want to say, Kurimeo, nah, Atlas was right there in Mauritania. What you talking about, man? What you talking? I'm like, where's your sources for all this stuff? Who says Plato said that? Plato literally said Atlantis was bigger than Libya. Listen, bigger than Libya, Asia, and Africa. That's got to be a big landmass. It can't fit inside Mauritania. You guys don't pay attention. Yo, La Ruta Maya, there you go. Yo, that's deep right there. Yeah, La Ruta Maya. Ruta, huh? They're bringing back the words. So remember the book we read, Researches into the Lost History of America, where it breaks down Oceanos, how it relates to the Americas, Atlas, Poseidon, all that. Look how it's correlating right here. Out of the nymph Clymene, representing the human inhabitants of the Arctic zone. This is deep. As the present Northern Europe and the land bridge connecting it with North Atlantic continent, or Atlas, North America, right, all this land, came into being at the antipodes of India, the ancestors of the Greek Hellenes gave to it the name Hell. Moreover, to the Greeks, so-called Greeks, remember, Greeks include many different peoples. What Greek are you talking about, right? Hellenized people, huh? Moreover, to the Greeks, the Euro-African, the Euro-African landmass that came into being when Hell, including Helvetia, was connected with Africa by the Mediterranean, was known as Libya. Following the biblical deluge, when the Mediterranean, the Red Sea, and the Black Sea came into being, the part of Libya, constituting the present Europe, was called Gallia. Nor was the name of Europa, the daughter of the mythical Phoenix, Europa said to be a black woman, ever employed to designate the present Europe until after the Danitic migration from Egypt to Grecoland. Who? The Danites, seafaring people from so-called Egypt. You mean America, ancient Egypt, right? Remember, it was ancient Egypt to the Grecoland. Therefore, any references to Europe prior to that time is entirely incorrect. That's a big one right here. This is what I'm trying to explain to you guys. Oh, yeah, Asia, Asia. So when they're saying Asia in ancient times or Africa or even Europe or any of that, they're not thinking about it how it really was. They're thinking in modern terms. So therefore, any references to Europe prior to that time is entirely incorrect and must be constructed only as a reference to the landmass constituting the western part of the Euro-Asian continent. Just as Sealand in Denmark and Sealand in Netherlands preserved the name of Sealand, which had fallen into the nether realm of the god Hades, who was in no sense the same as Teutonic and Hellenic god Hel. So did the Friesland in Germany, Friesland in the Netherlands, Frislanda, the Faroe Islands, and Islanda, Iceland, while Greenland and the present Labrador were both called Labrador. It was all connected. Labrador's up there in Canada, right? Finally, all the realms beyond Gallia fell within the general designation of Erebus, implying the darkness which had fallen over the Western world. The darkness that had fallen over the Western world. Before it is possible to interpret the implications of the geographic and racial names preserved by the Greeks in their geograph, however, it is necessary to have the key to the language employed by the ancient geographers. You got to know what the ancient geographers were really talking about. And we don't, in general, have this context. We don't have this true context. Again, duplicates and false lands, there was real old world lands, right? Today, it is recognized that language did not evolve as believed by Bopp, Pott, Hegel, Schlegel, Müller, and others from a common root after the manner of a tree, but as demonstrated by Schmidt, spread over the earth by waves. That goes into my video where we did the history, the study of philology, and how many nations of the world connect to each other through philology, through their language. Like, let's say, a people in Asia, then a people in Africa, then a people in South America connect. Their language are very similar as they were spreading throughout the world, but they had an origin still. Nevertheless, there was a common language. There was a common language older than both Sand and Sanskrit. What was this older language, right? Where does Sanskrit come from? We have read anthropology, we have read the study of philology, and people saying, like, what they're calling so-called Hebrew or Paleo-Hebrew. That's what Sanskrit describes them. So what is this mother tongue? Remember, in the Bible, it says that during the Tower of Babel, right? During the Tower of Babel, God punished man because he wanted to be, reach heavens and all that, and he confused all the languages. So only one people kept the true original or older language, and that was Eber and his family. Eber separated himself from the building of the Tower of Babel and took his family away from that, and their language was never confused. Okay? This, in fact, was the hierarchic script which the serpent code imparted. Serpent code, huh? That's the hijack. Who's the snake kings? Who's the Nagas? Corresponding in its universality to the Latin of the Christian priesthood. Upon it was based the Aramaic language, which I agree. The Aramaic is very close to the very ancient mother tongue. Why? Why? Because you must know that Aramaic comes from Aram. Who is Aram? Aram is a son of Shem. So Shem, right? Shem spoke what Noah spoke. Noah spoke what Adam spoke. The original mother tongue. So Aramaic is very close to the very ancient mother Paleo-Hebrew, Paleo tongue that eventually Eber was still speaking, and eventually his family kept speaking as it evolved, as it changed right throughout the ages. But it was still speaking that tongue, that original language, right? And he's saying the Aramaic language comes kind of out of that, a composite of the hieratic language of the Aryans. What is an Aryan? That just means noble. That just means noble, and of the older one of those who taught the Maya philosophy. Of the older ones, the older languages of those who taught the Maya philosophy. Based on the Amara Kosha. Listen, the Amara Kosha, Amaru, Amara, Amara Khan, Amara Kosha. What is that? The vocabulary of the immortals. We're just talking about the mother tongue. It was called what? Amara Kosha, Amara Ko, Amara Khan, Amaraka, Amarako, Amaraka, Amarako. What is that? The vocabulary of the immortals. The latter furnished the hieroglyphs constituting the philosophic symbol through which the principles of esoteric Buddhism were expressed. Buddha, huh? Who's Buddha? What's his first name? Guatemala, 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 Buddha, Guatemala, Guatemala. Who's Buddha's mom? Maya. Who's Buddha's mom? Maya, Maya philosophy. Amara, Ko, Amara Ka. You guys see how it all connects, right? Hold on, my fault. Okay, so therefore, the philosophic conception of Brahm, who also, if you put an A before the Brahm, what do you get? You get Abram. And doesn't it tell us in the Bible that that was Abraham's original name? Abram, Abram, Brahm, Abraham, Abram, Brahm, to whom the Hindu Brahma traces, finds expression through his name. So Abraham plays in that, right? Certainly in view, like look at all the sources, guys. She has sources. Like this is why I like these kind of books, because you can reference where she's getting all this info from, which is very thorough. She very thorough. Okay? Which you can read the source. The sources, the footnotes have a lot of drop too. I'm going to share this book on my Patreon. Okay? I mean, you can find it online, just like I did. But I'm going to share this on my Patreon if it's too hard for you to find. So let me make sure I get. So certainly in view of the symbology of the Aramaic alphabet, the first word, no one can doubt that it implied the philosophic arc enshrined by Amara. Whoa, guys, we can't make this up, guys. The immortals, the Amaru, are the immortals, or maybe the antediluvians. Remember, they lived for hundreds of years. In Amaravati, Amara, Amaru, Amara, Amaraka, Amara Khan, priest king, in Amaravati. In Amaravati. Look at this, chapter 2, the language of America, the true cross. But guys, guess what? We're going to leave that for the next part. All right. I told you we're getting into a new book. It's a lot of drop to go over. So we don't want to make these videos too long so people can actually sit down and watch them. Right. Again, I hadn't read this whole, like I skimmed through it. I hadn't read it like how I did it today with you guys. So I didn't know there was so much drop like this. Right? But you guys see how it all connects back. Look what it says here, number 37, right? Look at the footnote. It says, Amara equals God, mother, and son. Amara Ka, Amara, God, mother, son. Wow. Va, or Va, spiritual essence. T, him. Wow. Yeah. A lot of drop. That's what's up. That is what's up, man. That is what's up, man. That was chapter one, guys. Again, of the book America, the background of Columbus being a survey of the revelations of science with respect to the Western Hemisphere and its peoples before its unveiling by Columbus, by Jennings C. Weiss. Well, I was saying her. I don't even, this might be a guy, so my fault, So, Virginia Academy of Science, American Association for the Advancement of Science. This ain't just anybody writing this, This ain't just anybody writing this. Now, before we go, because we got Red Vader Black Lion in the chat, we're gonna put one of his instrumentals. Again, my good brother, right here. He shared a lot of good music with me. What do you think I should put? Red Vader Black. That's your new name, bro. I'm trying to get used to the new name. Which one should I put? I'll just put Blood Rush. I just put Blood Rush since it's in the blood. Since it's in the blood. Since it's in the blood. Lots of drop for sure, yo. This is a good book. A good, really good book. Really, really good book. So I appreciate you guys making the time to be here. There's 190 people here finally. And we started with 30 people. It seems like people are not really that interested or not getting the notifications, right? Because I told you guys I'm blacklisted. I told you I'm blacklisted. You guys don't believe me. You saw yesterday what the AI was saying about me. Talking about pseudo history. Pseudo history, huh? But either way, I appreciate all the real ones. Shout out to everybody that came through today on the live chat. Shout out to all my Patreon supporters, my moderators. Thanks for being here. My channel members, check out my private channel, my private member videos on my channel. You get to see me travel through Costa Rica, a little more personal, me walking around the neighborhoods, talking, answering questions, check those out, guys. You can support me that way, or you can go to my Patreon page. That's where I'm going to share this book. That's where I have a lot of the books that I read from in my videos, if you're interested, okay? That's where I'm going to share this book. If you want to have it, a PDF copy of it, I'm going to do that right after I get off this. I'm going to share it right away on my Patreon. Okay. But again, I appreciate you guys coming through. All right. I hope you enjoyed it. To me, this was a lot of drop, and I can't wait to get to chapter 2. I can't wait to get to chapter 2 to see what it's saying. I can't wait to get to the next chapters. I didn't know it was this good. I had this book for I had this book at least 6 years in my drive. I told you I got so many books there I got to go through. I got so many books I got to go through there, guys. All right. Again, I'm going to share this on my Patreon. Thank you, Alikshi, for sharing my Patreon link. It's in the chat, guys, if you're interested. That's what's holding me up because YouTube don't really pay me. Like, YouTube takes all my money. Every month, I'm like, what's going on? I got more subscribers, yet my money goes down, and I got to do more videos than I had to do before. I don't get it. I don't get it, but it's whatever. I know the Most High is going to bless, and for the work we do, for all the effort and the passion, and the love of doing this. You guys see how it all starts correlating, coming back to the Americas, right? We're talking about a more true older land, a more true old world, because America has been falsely denominated the new world, all right? Much love and respect. We're gonna go out, guys, with what's called Blood Rush from Robin Dre Beats with Bite. And again, that's produced by Red Vader Black Lion. He's in the chat. Let him know what you think of it. Shout out to Red Vader Black for the intro. Appreciate you, brother. Again, much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Wow.
Robin Dre, Beats with Bite. Robert Dre. Bye.
Yeah. Wow. Much love.